Hello, feminine. I find myself lost in my thoughts now. It almost seems like they change so quickly from moment to moment. Well, mostly right now, I'm thinking about my longing to belong. You know, through most of my life, I've felt like I've been excluded from most things, at least the things that I wanted. I feel like one of those crazy people that I get so much, and it feels like none of it is really what I want. And the stuff that I want feels like stuff that I can't have. And I remember at one point when the stuff that I can't have became you. I remember realizing at some point when we were together that I was holding you back a lot. Or rather, what I noticed was that you were holding yourself back for me. And I do remember several times that we talked and that I even told you I felt like you were getting too far ahead of me. And of course, you being you, you slowed yourself down a lot. You held yourself back. You held things in. I don't know, the other day I noticed that you were telling someone on your social media that you were scared. And it was a situation that you were going through that you had gone through when we were together. And I don't recall you ever telling me that you were scared. But I realized I was a fool to think that you were never scared. You've done so many brave things, and I took it for granted that in fact, I didn't realize that you weren't telling me how you were really feeling because I wasn't a safe place to share those feelings. And I can see myself then and even now and see why you felt that way. Because I was often so scared and anxious and grumpy about things that I know that you felt like if you were to show me that you were scared or anxious or didn't have a strong anchor on our boat, that I would have panicked. I did just a few times that you had human moments. And so you learned pretty quickly that you could not share with me when you felt things were scary. You have lately, and it's funny just that, I don't know, feminine, you always do it to me. Like, so I swear I could have anybody else tell me I'm scared or I'm angry or I'm grumpy or something like that. And I just go, oh, well, can I do something, or you've got this or something like that. And it wouldn't really cross my mind. But with you, I don't know. It's just, it's funny. It feels like, I know this is going to sound weird, but it almost feels like if you're able to not to share it with me, to share it publicly, to show a difference, because I know you, feminine, and I know that you do not often share vulnerabilities. For a long time, I really didn't believe that you really had any. I know you told me that you did, that you had the same thoughts and feelings that I did, jealousies and envies and shadows and things like that, but I thought you were just telling me that so I wouldn't feel so bad. But then you started sharing your actual feelings. And it's weird. I don't know if it's this connection that you talk about, this whole twin flame stuff, or if it's just kind of the magic of seeing somebody that I realized I kind of idolized. Feminine, I have had you on such a pedestal, and it almost feels like it's been millions of years, and I've just seen you as this empress high up on a mountain peak who has no imperfections, who's so perfect that she can point out her own imperfections, and still that is perfect because so many people can't. Especially me. I've become the kind of person who is so determined not to show any weakness that I am weaker than weak. and being around the karmics that I've been in, and not just people, but my unhealthy patterns and thoughts, I can see that I've been weaker than weak, all just trying not to feel like I'm weak. I haven't been able to admit to one darn thing that I do that I know is flawed. It's like I'm allergic to accepting that I have any at all. Even though, strangely enough, that's all I think about. Especially, well, it's not all I think about, but when I think about you, it's a lot of what I think about. I remember before I left, before I ran, I saw you trying so hard to hold space for me, and yet it was like it was tearing you in two. You had this incredible spark in you that was pushing you to grow and glow and build something amazing, and yet you incredibly were holding that force back, trying to wait for me, and I was stubbornly not growing, not going, too afraid of change, too afraid to face the shadows that would allow me to stop living in cycles of pain. And I convinced myself that you were just trying to change me, that we were just two different people. And I had friends, at least at the time, they're not around much anymore. And I realized what you said all along, that they weren't really friends to me. They weren't really going to be there for me when I needed them to, and I didn't want to believe you. These were people I've known most of my life. I didn't really understand what friendship was, and it felt strange that you, of all people, who've never told me who I can and can't be friends with, was pointing out the ways that when I'm with them, I become like them, and then I don't like myself, and then I sabotage everything else that's good for me. This separation has shown me just how true that is from the very beginning, because I was honest with them and telling them that I felt like you were too good for me. You wanted radical honesty. You wanted total transparency. You wanted to uplift the community around us. You wanted to go deeper in intimacy. You wanted to celebrate us publicly. You wanted to dive deeper into our shadows, and I almost felt like you were examining me, and it wasn't until later that I realized that it wasn't that you felt I was imperfect. It was that you were trying to help me catch up, and it's my fault that I didn't see that. I was the only one who ever doubted it. To be honest, I feel stupid because now I see what was wrong with me. And what it was is that I was afraid that at any moment you might take your love from me. And so it felt scary to accept any of it, especially the more real it felt. I remember I pushed myself a few times just to try some things that you wanted to try, that you assured me that you would help me through it, that we wouldn't push anything, that my consent mattered and my anxiety level mattered, and that even if you found something frustrating, you wouldn't be mad at me. And that in and of itself was already radically different to anyone else I had known who, if they want something and I don't want it, or if I even hesitate, I'm already a horrible person. Like, how could I not want exactly what they want? Or like it was some sign that I didn't love them if I didn't want to do every single thing the way that they wanted it, right when they wanted it. But I remember when I let myself be led by you, and you took me through some of the deepest and, quite frankly, the kinkiest experiences I've ever been through, both in the mundane world and the magical world, and it felt so amazing. Though it also scared me more than I've ever been scared, because you Feminine, you proved that you really knew me, that you knew all of my flaws and quirks and eccentricities, and you knew what I was passionate about. You knew me better than I knew myself, and you knew exactly how to love me. You knew how to help me jump rope the line between my own pain and pleasure. And, to be honest, I thought that if I gave in and I just placated you and I did some of the things you wanted to do, that either my flaws would come out and you'd be like, yeah, this isn't my masculine, I'm done, or that it would go so horribly that you must be wrong, that neither of us would have a good time and you'd never want to do it again. But even when my flaws came out, you showed me that you appreciated me, that you enjoyed the vulnerabilities, that in fact that I was more of a masculine for being willing to show them. And I've never known anyone in my life who would ever be that way. I felt the most understood, the most supported, the most loved. I felt adored, to be quite honest. But it scared me. It scared me so much because it felt like you were so good for me. You were too good. You were so mature and yet so in touch with your inner child, and that you had so many wonderful traits that all it would take is one day for me to screw it up and for some other masculine to come along and show you just the basic appreciation and understanding that I felt so incapable of, that you would see your worth and you would leave so quickly and never come back. And then I would lose everything. I would lose myself. I realized that I was falling into you. I wasn't just falling in love with you. I don't know. It's weird. It's like I felt like I was becoming you and yet I wasn't, and I felt like I was losing myself, the self I'd always known, the macho man who was never weak. And I felt like you were breaking through all the barriers that I had built up from all the years of karmics who had hurt me. And I know that they were tough barriers. Nobody else has ever been able to get through, and only you, only through your patience and creativity, and only through knowing me as well as you do, were you able to actually get through, and that scared me so much. And I remember I talked with those friends and I told them how I felt like that you were genuinely a good person and that I was just so flawed. And you know what's funny? I thought they were being friends when they told me that I was right, that, well, I just wasn't your type, and that I don't know. It seems crazy now because at the time I almost felt included with people that I've always felt excluded from. Like I had always done everything wrong, and it almost felt like they were accepting me now, accepting me for my flaws, especially the karmic I've been with, who assured me that she would never ask me to change. And what kills me is every single day since I've been with her, she's only ever asked me to change every single thing about me. And it made me realize how much I made a big deal out of the few times you asked me to change a little. And you weren't even asking me to change who I was. You were just asking me to put the mask down and be who I really am. But that's not what I told myself it was at the time. And you know what's crazy is now I sit around, I mean, with the karmic, and sometimes those friends are even around, and I see the way they behave. They cheat on each other. They hurt each other. They talk crap. They talk crap about me too. They try to get me into it, and they have this constant list of things that I must do in order to be on their good side, just to receive a text or a call, or with the karmic, with any sort of affection. Appreciation isn't even a thing that exists. And I sit sometimes and I think, is this really who I am? Is this really who I'm choosing to be? Did I really leave my feminine because I believed that I was like these people who have no real friends, who are afraid to get out into the world, who just constantly say life's not fair and they just never get a break, who are constantly in dramatic battles with everyone they know that nobody really likes. Am I really this kind of person who's more into manipulation and thievery and ego? I see the person that you said you saw me as, someone with honor and integrity and a good parent, a good friend, a hard worker with a great reputation. I don't have that reputation so much anymore, but I did when we were together. And I don't know, feminine, I'm thinking a lot about who I was when we were together, who I was before then, who I have been now during separation, and I'm afraid to think about who I could be if it was you and me again. I see that somehow, incredibly, even without like letting go of me, letting go, I know you're releasing me. I can feel it, and it feels awful. Though I know that you've not stopped loving me, and you're not running away. You're just letting yourself out to play for once, and I see you glowing up because of it. And it's incredible, and I think, who would I have to choose to be in order to be the kind of man who feels like he is enough for a feminine like you? And I realize it's funny, because if it was anybody